Aloha and welcome to this month's Typhoon. Today it is the return of Typhoon Anna. Usually Typhoons don't come back around, but Typhoon Anna always comes back around. So we'll be talking about accounting fun with Anna and me.
Death, taxes, and typhoons. You can't avoid them.
Now, I really built you up yesterday in the Secret Beach because I said, look, most accountants, tax attorneys, bookkeepers, they're going to be very dry and boring. They're going to be like Ferris Bueller's teacher. And see, I said Anna's not that way. If you've not seen the first Typhoon she did, Anna's got a zest for life, and she doesn't sound monotone and boring.
That's right. I'm glad to be here.
All right, funny girl. So for those that don't know you, why don't you give them a quick little bio, rundown of who you are and why we're talking to you?
Of my fabulousness. Well, the most important thing is I'm your friend, and I'm grateful for that, a colleague in the community. And I'm also a CPA. I've been practicing for 20 plus years. I don't want to age myself too much. And I work primarily with commerce sellers, helping them get their books in order. I have a free Facebook group. Please join. There's never going to be a fee for it, and you can ask as many questions as you want to.
And the Facebook group is Accounting We Will Go.
Yes, and I have a link in the PowerPoint to the group that we're going, once we go through it, but you're right. It's called Accounting We Will Go, and so is the website with lots of free, great information. But join the group. You won't regret it. It's lots of fun. And you know what I love about the group? No one really hangs out there like the Secret Beach, but it's a resource. I mean, you can hang out if you want to, but just go in when you have a question. We get real busy about this time of year in January. That's why I'm excited to be here, to kind of answer some questions ahead of time and get people thinking.
So if I've made a lot of money this year, should I buy like a Learjet to offset my expenses or my taxes?
That's a bad idea because that's a capital asset and it will be depreciated over its useful life. So no, but that's in general a good question. There's a big discussion about some tax laws that have changed that allow you to expense inventory when purchased. That is actually not new. The only thing that's changed is the threshold went from 10 million to 25 million.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So you always had the ability to expense inventory when you purchase it, but I do not recommend that. And here's why. In accounting, there's a foundational truism. It's called the matching principle. And you really want to match revenue with expense. So if you spend $5 on something in year one and you don't sell it till year 3, but you sell it for 75, well, you're not going to know in year 3 that you only made 70. You want to match and wait and hold that $5 and expense it in year 3. So now we're way, way ahead of where we need to be. That's like slide 500. But the point is, this is complicated. Talk with your tax CPA about this and make a plan. And the difference between those two approaches is called the cash or accrual method. You hear that a lot, but please know nothing has changed except the threshold has increased from 10 million to 25 million, which probably only affects maybe you and one other person in the entire country.
I wish I had such problems.
Exactly.
All right, let's dive in. Oh, there we go. There's join the Facebook group right here.
Okay.
I'll pop the link into the Secret Beach chat. So that way, on the Secret Beach. So that way you guys who are not in Accounting We Will Go, get over there.
Yes. And thank you for those of you who are in the Nerd Fest.
All right. Where do we start?
Well, let's see here. I'm going to pull up the PowerPoint on my screen so I can see it and you. What to do if you have an accounting mess. What should I do? First of all, don't panic. Now, if you move to the next slide, I'm going to tell you the steps that you need to go through to tame your accounting mess. It's actually pretty simple if you just take it step at a time. Remember, your situation didn't get this way overnight. You're not going to be able to fix it overnight. But what I really want for everyone is to not have so much stress at tax time. And I want you to know your numbers, at least on a quarterly basis, but monthly is ideal. So the 4 steps, I'm going to talk about these. You're going to get organized. I'm going to tell you exactly what to do. You're going to create the accounting system. I'm going to talk about the choices. You're going to categorize the transactions into their proper accounts or buckets, or, there's different words for it, but you're going to categorize all the transactions, office supplies, inventory, that kind of thing. And you're going to reconcile. And I'm going to tell you what that is. Jason, do you think there's any value in knowing your numbers monthly versus kind of winging it till year end? This is a trick question.
Yeah, I never knew my numbers until about April 17th. Now I do because I got somebody awesome doing them. But yeah, I am. It was a lot of years of a hot mess, and
Yeah.
every time I went to the accountant, I would miss the same like 4 or 5 things. I guess I never took good enough notes because she would ask for this, and this, and I'd have a lot of it prepped, and then I'm like, I forgot this, and this again. So yeah, I didn't know how I did until she got done.
And that's kind of scary because you can't manage what you don't measure. And so I really encourage people, if you've got to do your taxes anyway, just bite the bullet, create a system. It doesn't have to be complicated, and then at least manage it throughout the year. I'm sure that you guys have spouses, business partners, or you even ask yourself, am I making money? And I hear over and over and over again, sellers say, I don't know what my numbers are. I don't know if I'm making money. I know I have money coming in. I can't seem to pay myself. I don't know what's going on. So if you do the next slide, we'll talk about how I suggest you get organized.
Ta-da! Oh, number 1, get organized.
And the next slide. Okay, how do you do that? Remember, I'm a big fan of keeping things simple. I'm going to tell you what I suggest. All the steps may not apply, but do something really simple. Gather all of your bank statements and your credit card statements for the time period. So if you're trying to get together everything for 2018, you know what? Next time there's a rainy afternoon, find something on Netflix and go online and download your bank statements and credit card statements. People always ask me, well, what if I want to keep it in paper? You can certainly do that. You want to create a system that works for you. The next thing you're going to do that I suggest, and this is actually where their eyes start to roll back in their head, is gather the receipts. We all know people lose receipts. Jason, do you have your scary envelope?
Hold, please. You mean my misappropriation of priority mail supplies? Yes.
Where's my paper bag? You know what? And that works for you. It sure does.
Hang on. Let me put these back in an organized manner. Okay. Hold on. Okay, now it's cleaned up.
Let me guess. A typhoon hit the envelope, and that's why everything's a mess. So you can do like Jason, or you can be a little bit more of an adult and just get an accordion folder and put the receipts in per month. It doesn't have to be complex. There's services that will scan them and organize them for you. But remember, keeping it simple and manageable is best. Okay, I get this question all the time. Well, what happens if I mix my business and personal transactions in one bank account? Okay, what I want you to do tomorrow morning is go online and open a separate bank account. It doesn't necessarily have to be a business-specific account. That's ideal, but some people file a Schedule C under their Social Security number, and it can likely be, and I say likely, because if you get audited and they yell at you, don't come finding me, but you can generally have a separate bank account for your business. You don't have to pay the expensive business fees. Talk to your CPA about that. I'm not your CPA. Talk to your CPA. But if you have a mix of business and personal, number one, you're going to fix that first thing in the morning. You do not want that to continue. It just invites question if you're audited. If you have an LLC, the first thing that's going to negate the protection of the LLC is a blended account with business and personal. Don't do it. If you already have, you can't go back in time. So what you need to do is, remember I said gather the bank and credit card statements? It could be something as simple as highlight all of the business transactions. Or if you have downloaded them, which I think is great, and they're in Excel, you can go through and make a notation of which ones are business and personal. So do that. That sounds like a lot. It is if you have a whole year's worth to do, but just take it in little baby steps. You know, it's almost family time over the holidays. Family drives you crazy. Now you have an excuse, a little side project you can do, right?
Exactly. And I got to tell you, one of the best things I ever did was to get the separate business account, the separate business credit cards, and the separate business checking account. Because if you're diligent and, okay, I pulled the credit card for the business stuff, I write the checks for business stuff, then I don't got to figure out at the end of the year what's what. Everything in the business account is my business.
Oh, it's a huge time saver. And I don't know why people resist doing this, except it's a headache to open an account. Well, what's a bigger headache? Open a separate account or deal with it at year end?
Yeah. Yeah, trust me. It's the greatest thing you'll ever do. Life will be so much easier.
The greatest thing in your whole life. Okay, the next thing, actually the greatest thing in your whole life is joining the free Facebook group. Step 2, decide how you want to track your accounting transactions. This is the next thing that gives people headaches. And so I want to talk about what the options are, which are on the next slide. I need a little bell. Ding.
Ding.
Like, remember those projectors that said it would go ding, and then you would flip the page in your workbook in school and look at the next page? That's what we're doing here. Okay, there's several options. You may have your own option that is not on this list, but these are the most popular options. The pencil, paper, notepad approach. I think a lot of people do that. That's fine if it works for you. Another option is GoDaddy. I know eBay sellers especially love GoDaddy because it integrates with eBay, and there's not a great solution. QuickBooks doesn't do a great job of integrating the sales with eBay. There are some disadvantages to GoDaddy and some advantages. The one thing I don't like about GoDaddy is there's not an opportunity to reconcile the bank and credit card accounts so that you have a standalone balance sheet. And all that means is you don't have it. GoDaddy is not a true double entry accounting system with debits and credits. That doesn't mean it's bad. If it works for you, that's great, but just understand what it is and it isn't. Some people track everything in Excel or, similar thing. I know some people track it in Word. Again, do what works for you. And then kind of a common double entry solution is QuickBooks or Xero. There's a couple of other options. You should do what works for you. And I'm harping on this, but if you're using QuickBooks and it's frustrating and you have a big fat mess in there, that's not going to help you at tax time. But that is my personal preference. Now, for those who want to use a free Excel, just very, very basic, I have one. It's a bonus freebie. You're welcome to it. You can share it with other people. If you go to the next slide, you'll see the link for it.
Again, I'll post that. Don't worry about writing this down right now because you won't get it right.
I know. And just so you know, too, you can go on the Accounting We Will Go website, and we have all of these blog posts. Just find the one that's the basic inventory tracking for e-commerce sellers. And I have an explanatory video. It's just a template. It's very basic. You can modify it to whatever level you would like, whatever detail you want, but it should be enough if you want something really simple to track your stuff. Or maybe you want to create your own and share it with others. But that's what I have for you guys if you think it'll be helpful. Okay, step 3. Remember, the first step is getting organized. The next step is to determine how you want to track your accounting. And then the third step is you want to categorize transactions. And all this means is you're going to look at all of the transactions for the year, the business transactions, and determine what they're related to. So if you want to flip the screen to the next one, and then I'm going to read through some of the details that I have. We have a free chart of accounts, and the chart of accounts is, which you guys can read, a listing of all accounts or categories for your business transactions, things like office supplies and inventory, which I just talked about. So if you go to the next slide, what I want you guys to know is if you go to this website on our Accounting We Will Go website, scroll to the very bottom and you can get a free chart of accounts. And if you already have a system in place or you're using Xero and not QuickBooks, I still encourage you to download it because I've been working with e-commerce sellers for a long time and I have a general idea of what accounts you're probably going to need. And I have 2 cautions for you. And this is something I see a lot with e-commerce sellers. They overcomplicate and they have way, way, way too many accounts. You don't want a pencil expense, a tape expense, an eraser expense, a stamp expense. You want to kind of consolidate it into meaningful buckets or accounts so that you can tell, okay, this is how much I spent on shipping supplies for the whole year. You don't want to necessarily know how much you spent on one kind of tape versus another kind of tape. Ding. That little screenshot there is what you're going to see. So you scroll to the bottom. And what I want to do now is I just want to talk about a couple of accounts that probably are going to be in your chart of accounts. And if they're not, you should think about it. You're obviously going to have a business checking account. Remember, we talked about that. You're also going to have PayPal. One thing about PayPal that confuses people is PayPal brings in all of the sales, for example, from eBay. So if you're using PayPal, which most people are, I'd say what, Jason? Everyone is using PayPal? Is that too crazy?
Yeah, but I mean, it's going to change because PayPal and eBay are breaking up. Now they've got the integrated thing that some of us have, some of us don't have. PayPal will be out, then it'll be back as an option. So it is going to be a little nutty over the next couple of years.
Woo! Fun, fun, fun. Yes, and I actually have someone in the group who said they received the email from eBay that they're now eligible for. What did you say the new payment processor is called?
Forget. I wasn't asked. Everyone asks how it works. I'm like, I didn't get it. Right now it's invite only. I
Yeah,
didn't want the invite, so I'm still just trucking along using PayPal.
you're in the dark. And I think,
Oh, it begins with an A. Anyone in the chat know?
and isn't the new system owned by eBay?
Yeah, they bought it. So eBay's, I'll tell you what it is.
And
New.
isn't it like some European product or something exotic like that?
Oh, geez, I don't even know that.
I think it may be. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. Okay, this is what I was talking about, whether it's PayPal or this new fancy pants system that's coming. If you have PayPal feeding into your accounting system, you do not also need to feed in eBay, because PayPal tracks the sales, the dollar amount that you received, the fees, because Amazon, or I'm sorry, eBay charges the monthly fee, and then they have the transactional fee. And then if you pay for shipping, that's all coming in via PayPal. So you do not need to connect PayPal and eBay. Does that make sense, Jason?
Yep.
Well, okay. You're also going to have an inventory account. And again, this is to track the amount of money that you spent on unsold inventory. How much do you have? What's the entire universe of inventory that you own? What did you spend on that? That's a really important number. And I bet that's the number one thing people do not know about their business. And is this a good time to harp on death piles?
Yes. What we call profit piles.
I like that. Profit piles. And you need to turn the death pile into a profit pile. And part of the way that you do that is by knowing what you have. And that's not really an accounting specific thing. It's just a general good business practice.
It's called, I know I'm a few slides behind. It's Aiden, Adyen. So that's the new payment.
Aiden.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Sorry. Google was slow for me. I got, where is it?
Hey, we're a team. No sorry needed.
Oh, and then Padiddle's actually got it before. Yeah, actually, if I would have looked over to the chat and stopped Googling, I would have seen I got the answer twice already. Sorry, chat.
One thing I wanted to mention about a profit pile is also, and this is kind of off topic a little bit, but I think it's really relevant, and I can share something from personal experience. As we get older, we realize we've had a whole lifetime of accumulating stuff. Some people have collections. Jason, we know you have amazing collections. And at some point, we all need to decide, okay, are we going to take this with us for the rest of our life or not? And my husband has an action figure collection, and it takes up an entire room in our home. Jason has seen it.
Awesome.
It is really cool. I'm really proud of it. And he loves it, and I love it. And it's really nicely displayed. But we talked about it, and we said, well, he said, because I told him, do what you want. He decided he wanted to pare down. So something that he had duplicates of, multiples, or maybe something that he didn't love like he used to, or maybe something that he just wants to sell. So when you're thinking about your profit piles, also think about your life and your home. Do you have stuff you maybe want to get rid of? And I can tell you, he's never had more than 30 listings up at one time, and he's made almost $6,000 this year. I know. I'm so proud of him. I have gotten really good at driving to the post office.
Hey, the post office picks up, right?
Yes, unless you live in a dysfunctional area like me, and they don't. I live in a city. I live in Atlanta, and traffic's terrible. So if they pick up after 5, they come at like 10 and 11 at night, and then that messes up which day he shipped on. And anyway.
Your pickups are at 10 p.m.?
Yes. And sometimes.
That can't be. That cannot be.
I'm telling you, I will go on next door and copy and paste the post where people are complaining about it.
All right.
I'm kidding. I win. I'm right.
You win. Where's the mic? Drop it. I'll get it. Yes,
I want a mic drop. So the point of all of that is, and this is kind of like me on my personal business soapbox, you have profit piles, and you may have things that you don't even realize. And if you know that you're going to be downsizing in a couple of years, start now, because you cannot downsize 2 weeks before you're going to move. So you guys get the point. Enough of that. The next thing in the chart of accounts you're going to have is going to be an account for all of your credit cards or other financing options. Some people, if you're selling on Amazon or even eBay, you may have loans from Amazon, friends and family, those kind of things. This is something really important I want you to think about. I want you to compare the relationship between the debt you have and the unsold inventory. So think about it this way. If you hold, and I'm going to use real simple numbers, $5,000 of unsold inventory, and you have $6,000 of credit card debt, that's bad. Boo! You don't want that. So think about the relationship between debt to inventory. That's another reason it's really important to quantify how much you hold in unsold inventory, because the whole idea is if the bottom were to drop out, What would I need to come up with to pay this debt? Oh, what was that?
It's all a t-shirt.
Yay! So obviously you want to manage debt. It can be a tool. It can also be something that can get out of hand. That's a whole separate webinar. Some people are anti. Everyone has to make their own decisions. Just kind of rule of thumb, retail stores, brick and mortar stores have a 30% ratio. So what that means is they have debt only on 30% of the value of their inventory. So if they hold $10,000 in inventory, they only want $3,000 in debt. That's just brick and mortar, rule of thumb, just to kind of display to you or explain to you guys how that ratio works. But don't stress out too much about getting these numbers perfect. You know, done is better than perfect. Get organized, get the separate accounts, start tracking this. And over time, you'll get better and better at looking at these relationships.
So I guess we'll answer the questions as we go, since we're already past the one I see. But what if you use Pirate Ship and pay with your credit card? I'm assuming that it goes to your shipping. Do you know about Pirate Ship?
No, it sounds.
All right, so I should tell. I'm going to tell you, so have Michael look into it. So Pirate Ship's a new website to ship on that will bring over all your eBay transactions, and they're working on the other platforms to bring them over too. And they've cut a much better deal with the post office than eBay ever has, which is shocking.
Wow.
Because they also do a thing called box in a bag. So if you have a bag less than 18 inches, you measure the bag just the length and the width, and then whatever box fits in it goes at a much lower rate than if you're shipping the box by itself.
Ooh, and what's it called?
Pirateship.com.
That is awesome.
So I'm guessing the question was, all right, so how do you account for when you're using Pirate Ship with your credit card?
Okay, this is a great thing. Do you remember at the beginning I said get the statements for your bank and your credit card? I'm going to assume that this credit card that's being used may have a mix of business and personal. So you want to identify all of the transactions where you paid for that shipping program and make sure they get into your accounting software. One thing you can do, for example, if you're using QuickBooks, is feed all of the transactions in and then pull out the personal ones, or you can just manually enter all of the transactions that are related to shipping. And you see right there is a really good example of why if you had one credit card that was just for business stuff, then you could feed in all the transactions and you don't have to fiddle around with sifting through. I will say that sometimes when people are beginning or even over time, they have only certain credit limits. And you know what? If you have a mix of business and personal, it's not really the end of the world, but it's not ideal. So work towards getting away from that. But if it's either that or not running your business, then certainly I am not judging. You work with what you have. But remember that you are going to have to pull those out because you want to be able to take that expense on your tax return as a legitimate business expense.
And Chris R wants to know, do you account for selling personal possessions differently?
Yes and no. The revenue that comes in from selling personal items, I think the action figure collection is a really good example. You know, he's had some of those for 10 and 15 years. So in that case, all of the revenue earned is taxed at whatever rate your business taxes are. And a lot of people are Schedule C, and that means that you have the business revenue minus the business expense, whatever that number is, flows into your personal tax return. The part that people get really confused about is what number do I use as the cost of goods sold or the expense? So let's say that the action figure sold for 100. He bought it 10 years ago. He has no idea what he paid for it, but he can guess. You have a couple of options. Again, I am not your CPA. I'm going to give you a few options, and then you talk to your tax CPA about it. One thing is you can make an estimate of what you think it may have been. So how much do you think action figures were 10 years ago? $5, $10?
Probably not a lot.
Yeah, so he could maybe say, okay, I know all of these because it's Star Wars so-and-so were created in such and such year, and they're probably $10 a piece. Log the methodology and say, okay, I sold it for 100. It cost 10. I have a profit of $90. That's one option. As long as you make a diligent, consistent, documented effort and your tax CPA blesses it, you can do that. The other thing that you can do is say, you know what, I have no idea. I'm just going to pay tax on $100. That's another option. So talk to your CPA, but that's what you need to do. Remember that accounting records are denominated at lower of cost or market. So whatever you do, if it's more in the favor of the IRS, they're less likely to hassle you if you get audited. And I want to say something along those lines. Jason, I think that you've seen this post before. I am about to make $20,000 in sales, so I better stop selling because I don't want to pay taxes.
It's absolutely crazy. Just happened in our group 2 days ago. A woman decided that she was going to let the world know, or at least the 55,000 people in my group, that she stopped selling on her ID and opened one with her husband's, because she was getting close so she wouldn't have to pay taxes. And I messaged her and I said, "Did you really just admit to tax evasion in my group?" And then someone said, I was talking to one of my admins or one of my friends, and someone said, "Well, it's not tax evasion, it's tax avoidance." I go, "Is there a difference?"
See what the judge and the IRS tax.
Yeah, I mean, you cannot make money and not report it.
Cool, go ahead. You're fine. Don't worry, please. So the point of that is, if you earn revenue, you are likely going to have tax ramifications, even if it's $1. Now, the reality is, if you literally only earned $1 and you don't file a tax return on that, I doubt they're going to come after you. But I can tell you this. I used to work in a CPA firm, and I was in the department. I did a lot of different things. And one of the things I did was I helped people when they got audited from the IRS, work with the IRS agent. And that's yet a whole other really fascinating webinar. But audits happen for two reasons. One is for cause, where the IRS just has like a fishy feeling something's going on. The other reason that they happen is random. Just random audit. And you can go in my Facebook group and read about people who've had both scenarios. So, you know, you can get audited over that $1, not filing that $1. And you say, well, how would they know? They wouldn't know. They would just pull your name literally out of a hat and say, okay, we want to audit you. Did you have any sales? Well, yeah, I had $1. Okay. You know, penalty and interest and all of that.
I got a good question I've never asked. So if you get audited and the end report is you overpaid, do they give you money back?
You know what? They actually will. They will do that. But you get a penalty for erroneously filling out your tax return.
Oh, geez. You know, my friend who's also online seller, she got audited for 2 years. And so the amount of, money to pay the auditor to deal with it for 2 years, when all was said and done, they found out she underpaid her taxes by $123.
See, that's just as a taxpayer, because we're paying the IRS's salary. That's very infuriating, but it's also a good thing because she was doing her part right. If you do get audited, the first thing you need to do is to go get a CPA, because what you don't want is you don't want the IRS to open up other years, like what happened with your friend. They will go in and they say, okay, I want to look at 1 year. Well, if they start smelling a rat, or they don't like your toot, or, something happens, they've had a flat on the way to do the audit, they can automatically open up other years. And you don't want that because, that's just exponential headache. So you want your CPA to negotiate with the IRS agent and say, look, we're going to give you everything under the sun. You can ask as many questions as you want, but let's agree that no other years are opened. So the other thing to keep in mind is that these IRS agents, they're regional, they know all the CPAs around. Everyone knows everyone. So a lot of times if you work with a tax CPA who has this kind of work in their book of business, they know the agents. They know, Fred CPA is a good guy. I like working with him. He's going to be honest and above ground. I'm going to go a little bit easier because I know he wants to do things the right way. Do not try to handle an audit by yourself. Do not do it. You'll be sorry. I mean, I bet your friend, in addition, if they didn't work with the CPA and they handled it themselves, they had to spend a zillion hours going through all that stuff. The unfortunate thing is, if they worked with the CPA, they probably had to pay a fee to the CPA to prove they didn't owe anything. That's really not fair.
I just sold another CD, so.
Yay!
That one wasn't an offer, so I just cha-chinged. I'm like, dang, I didn't have it up there.
Look at that. Okay.
I was getting roll-balled on it earlier, and I stuck to my grounds, and someone paid me what I wanted.
Good for you. Okay, this is getting boring about audits. I don't want to scare anyone. But just do know, yes, an audit can actually turn out with like not really any problems. Let's go on and move on. It's not like the life-ruining thing people think it is, but it's not fun. Okay, so all of those items that we just talked about are on the balance sheet. I want to talk about the P&L, or the profit and loss, or the income statement. And that is the financial statement that everyone is really familiar with. I just explained to you why the balance sheet is important, but the profit and loss is where the fun part is. And that tells you how much you earned, And what did you get to keep after you paid your expenses? So at the very top, I recommend, and you can see this on our chart of accounts, that you have a sales account for each platform you sell on, because you want to know, what did I sell on Amazon? What did I sell on eBay? What did I sell on Posh? Do you think that's a useful thing to see yours broken out that way?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know, and you really want to kind of think, okay, this is what I made. Was it worth the effort and trouble? What's really nice about having a lot of different choices is, as you guys know, probably better, I'm sure better than me, there's certain platforms that are great to sell certain things, and other platforms where that same item is not ideal to sell. And I think the selling books is something that's changed a lot, where maybe they were great for Amazon for a while and not so much now, at least certain ones. Okay. Moving on, we have the cost of goods sold. And I touched on that at the beginning. Cost of goods sold is the amount that you paid for the inventory that's sold. That's the whole, I sold it for 100, it cost me 10. So you want to track your cost of goods sold, because you want to know, of all of these sales on all of these platforms, what did I have to pay for the inventory that's sold? And that's really important. Okay. I'm not going to read all of these accounts on the chart of accounts, because that would be boring. And this I want to make sure, I'm trying real hard to keep this fun and exciting. But I do want to touch on a couple of things. You don't want to have too many accounts, and you don't want to have not enough. So the chart of accounts that you can get from our website, again, even if you're not using QuickBooks, even if you're a smaller seller just starting, or you're evolving your business from kind of part-time to like a legit business, take a look at our list and just see if you have all of these categories. One thing I want to tell you guys is, there has been a change. It was December 22nd last year, and it was to meals and entertainment. Meals and entertainment used to have a partial deductibility as long as certain, you know, it was business related and all of these things. Well, now entertainment is no longer deductible, which is really sad. And again, I am not your CPA. I'm explaining to you in very general terms. So talk with your CPA about this. But if you have business related entertainment that used to be deductible, at least partially, there's a good chance it's not anymore. I know. So, you know, go easy on the cocktails there, sister.
Yes,
although
ma'am.
it's not a meal. Could you make the point that that was a meal and not entertainment? Okay. Let's see. Let me mention something about mileage. Mileage is an expense, but it's a non-cash tax deduction. It does not go in your accounting records, but you still need to know it. So if you drive and you have a mileage deduction for business-related driving of $1,000, that does not go in your accounting records. It's a non-cash tax deduction, but it does go on your tax return. It's the same as a home office deduction. You don't take that off of your bottom line in your accounting records, but what you do is you give that to your tax CPA, and they put that deduction on your return in the proper place. And Jason has gotten us to this slide here. It says, but what about my tax return? Because people think, oh, well, this is great, all these details and stuff, but I just want to do my tax return. So setting aside my personal desire for every single person in the whole e-commerce community to know how much they're making at the end of every month, which will not happen, people do need to do their taxes. And some people are just going to choose to let it build and build and have a 3-ring circus at tax time, and that's okay. But what I want to encourage you to remember is your accounting records are the underlying detail of the tax return. If you keep up with your books, you should be able to hand them off to your CPA quickly and painlessly, which is what Jason was saying earlier.
It'll be my first year doing that. Yay!
Is it less painful?
Oh my God, I can't wait, because I know I got nothing to do next year.
And let's ask the most important question. Was Stacy happier?
Oh, she will become just, you know, well, we'll be able to do our taxes this year as soon as she gets her stuff from her company, because we're not waiting for me to figure out facts and figures and numbers.
Yay. Happy wife, happy life. We all want Stacy to be happy.
Hell yeah.
So anyway, if you're going to have to do it, you know, really try to set up a system so you know your numbers regularly. Okay. Ting.
Jenny has 2 questions, but I think you just kind of answered the one. She says, what about office space dedicated to selling only? Can you still deduct it? Yeah, you can still deduct it, but it's not, as you said, like a dollar amount.
Right. It's a non-cash tax deduction. And I want to add to that, since it came up, there's a safe harbor calculation. Remember before you say, okay, I have 1,000 square feet and 25% of the 1,000 square feet is business specific, so I get X deduction. They have a new thing. Well, I think it's about 4 years old, and it's a safe harbor rule where you can take up to a certain amount, no questions asked. Just, this is what I have. Now, you have to at least have that, but you can go online and Google safe harbor home office deduction, and it tells you what it is. It's not a whole lot, but for some people that are slicing and dicing numbers to get a tiny amount, if the safe harbor option applies, it might save a huge headache.
Mine would be easy to prove. I could just show them thousands of hours of YouTube footage of me sitting here. Ta-da! My office is very visible. And Jenny had another question. If you are retired and have an income limit and do not hit it, what then?
You know what? I'm going to avoid that question completely because I don't want to misspeak. Talk to your CPA about it. But I do want to say that's really, really, really important. And I'm so glad you're paying attention to that, because you don't want to go over. And I know sometimes with certain types of insurance, you can't have over a certain dollar amount. With disability, that's another thing that comes into play. People have to be really careful. Because everyone wants to be able to provide for themselves, but you also don't want to do it where you've made a little bit too much and then you don't have all of these other benefits you've earned throughout your whole life for being who you are.
Boy, Jenny's the only one bringing the questions. Where are the rest of you at? The rest of you all good?
Jenny's she sits at the front of the class, teacher's pet.
Yes, she sells for others. What then?
Who sells for others and what?
So she sells on consignment for friends and family.
Okay.
How does she do taxes based on that?
Well, if someone is doing that, you need to really think about whether or not you own the inventory or they own the inventory. And I would say in general, in those situations, really all you're doing is recording a consulting fee for selling the inventory. Let's say that you charge them 30%. So if it sells for 100, the revenue comes in as $100, and then you're going to reduce that by whatever amount you need to pay them back so that you keep, $70 or whatever the math is. So you may record the revenue, but you're going to reduce it by the amount that you need to give them for what their inventory agreement was.
I think we need to talk about that, since I'm selling 7,000 records for a friend. I don't think we've ever had that specific conversation.
Well, and
also, when you set me up, I wasn't selling 7,000 records for a friend.
That's amazing. Where are you storing these records?
Oh, in the garage. So my friend's wife wanted her parking spot back, so he said, "Hey, will you sell my records?" So she got her parking spot back, and Stacy lost her parking spot.
I need to see the inside of this garage. I didn't look when we were
It's like a store right now, because I got shelves. I got some of my merch. I've got boxes of 7,000 records all up on a pallet. Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
It's crazy right now.
Well, the whole idea is what a person doesn't want to do is they don't want to pay taxes on the whole sales amount, because it's not really all their revenue. So it needs to be reduced by the amount that passes back to the original owner.
Yes, Chris says, yes, I'm realizing consignment is a pain. And then Jenny says, well, how do you prove that? You got to keep good books, good records, right?
Well, and one of the things to do is to have these agreements in writing by both parties. Go down to, the UPS store and pay $2 to get it notarized. It doesn't have to involve a lawyer. You may choose to do that, but, it's about making a diligent effort. The fact that you recorded it, you have this documented ahead of time, both people have a copy of it, and you have it notarized, it'll have the date back in time. So if you do get audited, the IRS knows you're not going to, you could find some friend who's a notary and backdate it. But the point is if you've done a reasonably good job, it doesn't have to be thousands and thousands of dollars in legal fees. But I'm also not a lawyer, so check with your lawyer on that one.
So she said, how do you prove the percentage you keep and what you give them? So I do a monthly spreadsheet. Would that be good enough in an audit?
Yeah, absolutely.
So here's what the record sold for. Here's the eBay fee, the PayPal fee, my cut, his cut.
And that's perfect. And the secret to all of this is to have a third-party document supporting. So if you have a spreadsheet, that's great. But if you were questioned, I bet you could go on eBay and say, look, right here, this record sold. This is the date it sold, and this is how much it sold for. And right here, the spreadsheet matches.
Yep. All right. So we
You
had
don't necessarily have to accumulate all of that now, but you need to be able to. And if it's easier just to track it as you go, like in a spreadsheet, and say, well, if I'm questioned, I know I can go into my eBay history, then do it. You know, if it goes away after 3 months, you might want to make sure you're downloading it.
Can you add lines manually to GoDaddy or QuickBooks or both?
Yes, you can.
That was an easy one.
It's very simple. You can also edit account names. You can delete when there hasn't been any activity in an account and you decide, oh, I don't need that. So all of the software programs are very flexible.
So Chris says, so on consignment, do you need to give them a 1099?
You know what? That's a really good question. Off the top of my head, I don't think so, because you're not employing them as an independent contractor, but it also depends on what their entity is and your entity is. So again, I'm not trying to not answer, but
Right.
it can get detailed quickly. So double check with your CPA, but keep in mind the 1099 is to document payment for services rendered employment. And this is a consignment, which is slightly different. That's why if you take your clothes to a consignment store and sell it, they're probably not going to send you a 1099, but do double check, because that's a great question.
And so that leads me into my question. This is kind of just specific for you, me, but I have to do a lot of 1099s this year.
Mm-hmm.
And is that something that you can do for me?
Well, here's the cool thing. I have to also issue some 1099s sometimes, and there are services that do it, and it's really, really inexpensive. You can also, like, not you, but one can, like, old school write them out. That's perfectly fine. It's not ideal because it's really faster to use. You log on to a website, you put in the amounts, you know, name, address, social security number, and amount, and then they process them for you. They send them out for you. They send the stuff to the IRS. So lots of times, even if you're using a CPA, they're using that service to do it.
Okay. So that mean you can do mine for me and not have to worry about it? If I give you all the emails of who gets what, can you put them all together?
You might be able to talk me into it.
All right, sweet. I bet you some rum will talk you into it.
You know, I like the mom rum, like that cheap, like coconut flavored stuff.
Now, I'll send you good coconut. There is good coconut flavored stuff. If you use Melba, we cannot be friends. That is the death knell right there. No Malibu, no friend. All right. We did the tax return. Other tools for success. I
will say, I think somehow you skipped a step, because the reconciliation was the final step, step 4.
Well, we were there. Did we not talk about it?
No, you skipped it, because I was talking about the chart of accounts.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I just want to say this really quickly. This is a really important step. A reconciliation is the process of matching the balances in the accounting records to the bank statements. So let's say you're using QuickBooks and all the transactions are feeding in, or you're using Xero or GoDaddy and the connection drops for some reason. And it happens with all software all the time. It's really annoying. They can put men on the moon, but they cannot make the bank continue to talk to the software without that. It's infuriating. Well, what happens sometimes is when the connection is reestablished, it has to pull in the historical data. Sometimes it will miss things. Sometimes it will pull things in twice. Sometimes it'll be for the wrong amount. Funky things happen. So the whole point of the reconciliation is to make sure what the bank and credit card said happened, all the transactions, right date, right amount, are in your accounting software. This is really important. And if you use a bookkeeper or CPA to prepare your financial statements for you, what you're actually paying for is a set of reconciled financial statements. And all that means is you get a balance sheet and a profit and loss that has been compared to your bank and credit card statements. I mean, there's a little bit more to it than that, obviously, but that's what that word means, and it's really important. Okay. Now we can move forward. All right, I have some tips for other tools for success, but I want to make sure that we haven't missed any questions in the group chat.
We're caught up on chat as of right this second.
Okay, all right. Here's some tools that I personally really love for myself, and also for, because I actually do sell things online, not a lot, but a little bit. Jason knows, and some of you guys might know, I like to buy home textiles from India and sell them online on Amazon and eBay and even Etsy. And my Etsy store's done pretty well, even with like only 5 things listed. So yay me. Anyway.
You were right. Well done.
I just got back from India on a little buying trip recently. So I love it. It's so much fun there. But these are tools that I like for my business and for me as a person. I like YNAB, or some people call it YNAB. That stands for you need a budget. It's a free personal budget tracker. I love this tool because it connects with your bank account, your personal bank account, and it lets you categorize where you're spending money, but it's a little scary. It's kind of like, you know, when you start using like MyFitnessPal or Weight Watchers to track what you eat, it's not real fun, is it? But you know what? Again, you can't manage what you don't measure. And the whole point of having an online business is because you want to meet your personal financial goals. So if you're killing it in your business, but you don't track what you're doing in your personal life and you're going out to eat like crazy and whatever it is that's your, you know, guilty pleasure that you're maybe doing more than you realize, this tool, You Need a Budget, is really good. It's free. I think there's a paid version that does more stuff, but it's still not very expensive. I like it / hate it. TED Talks. Jason, do you listen to podcasts or do you like TED Talks? You may not be.
I've only listened to like one TED Talk. I listen to podcasts, but I mainly listen to either Tiki podcast, rock and roll podcast, or I listen to an LA morning radio show in a podcast form after it happens. So
and you listen to music all the time anyway. Like, I walk pretty much every morning. And so I like to listen to, my walk is about 40 minutes and I listen to TED Talks or certain other podcasts. But I love the TED Talks because they're motivational, inspirational, and they're about a variety of like personal and business development topics. They have some science ones. I think TED stands for technology, education, and something else. Someone in the group may know. I can't remember off the top of my head. But what I really love about the TED Talks is if you go on the website, you can get a transcript of it. So if you want to just read it, because people can generally read faster than they can listen to something, you can read it. Okay. The next thing I want to share is a book I love, love, love. I mean, saying life-changing may be a bit dramatic, but I love this. It's called The Great Leap by Gay Hendricks, and it's all about money mindset. And I'm a big believer in understanding our money mindset, examining it. You know, it's the whole idea that there's scarcity versus abundance and living in a place of gratitude. My Facebook group that I have, I like that because it's my way of giving back. And, you know, Jason, you do the same thing. You give back so much and you have to give to receive. I really believe that. So the book is about that, but it's about limiting beliefs. Like, let's say that you as a business owner want to double your business next year, double your revenue or double your bottom line, whatever it is. The first thing that pops into people's heads is generally negative talk. Like, well, I'm not going to have time. Well, if it was that easy, it would have happened already. So, you know, you've heard those things. We all tell ourselves these things, and those are called an upper limit belief. And it's about stepping outside of ourselves and listening to those voices. And they talk about working in your zone of genius instead of zone of greatness. And I know that sounds kind of granola, but the whole idea is if you're really great at something, that's great. But that can become a rut where you're sort of, you know, wash, rinse, repeat. And the whole idea is you want to be in the zone of genius where you're doing awesome stuff as often as you can. And by removing the limiting beliefs, you allow yourself to be in that place. So that's a little woo-woo, but it's a really, really great book.
So real quick, the TED is...
Oh, did someone say technology?
Yeah. What'd you say?
I said technology, education, and something.
Technology, entertainment, and design.
Okay. Thank you. Whoever.
And you can get them on YouTube so you can kind of listen while you list.
Yes. And I'm the kind of person I have to do one thing. I can't do like music and study at the same time, but they're always usually soft-spoken and have some cool visuals, but it doesn't take a whole lot of connection to listen to them.
No, and we were just in a hotel, and I can't remember which one because we travel 2 or 3 times a month, but one of the channels on the TV was just TED Talks.
Oh, cool.
Whole channel. So I'm like, oh, that's next level right there.
Yeah, it really is. That's really cool. I mentioned I went to India, and on the flight from Washington, D.C. to Dubai, which was almost 14 hours, by the way, they had a TED Talk channel.
That's cool.
They also had cocktails and food, and I wasn't in the mood to like be deeply moved. I just wanted to relax.
No learning. I just want to chill.
No, exactly. I was in vacay mode. The other personal and business tool that I find incredibly helpful is to have an accountability partner. This is huge for my business. And she works in a completely different field. She actually owns a co-work space in my community. So we have a very different business, but that's nice though, because she can examine challenges I have and give her thoughts on it. and vice versa. But what I really love about the accountability partner is I have found literally my most productive day of the entire month is the day before I meet with her. Because I'm like, oh, I better get some stuff done. I don't want to have a whole list of I didn't do it.
Yeah.
But I really like an accountability partner. It can be someone in your community. You know, the nice thing about social media is you sort of connect with people and you know, oh, so-and-so is usually on when I am. Maybe they live in the same time zone or they sell kind of the same things. So I encourage everyone to consider getting an accountability partner. You know, you definitely want them to have the same philosophy as you have. Like if you are against selling a certain kind of thing and that's what they do, you don't want to, you know, have them as your partner, but it could be someone that you meet with online, you know, Skype or Google Hangout or whatever, but meet with them monthly. One thing I really like about Margaret is her name. If I don't meet a goal or I don't do something, we talk about why. Sometimes it's literally running out of time. Sometimes it's literally, you know what, I just didn't want to do it and that felt icky and boring. And we talk about it. Well, okay, is this something maybe you don't need to do after all, or you just have to bite the bullet and do it? So I love having an accountability partner.
And funny enough, I kind of did that yesterday. You know, I do a weekly sandbar hangout on the beach and oh, my head's crooked. The one yesterday was, okay, we all get to the end of the year and go, shit, I didn't do this, this, and this, and I want to do in my online selling business. And so I started with the 3 things I wanted to do and said, all right, everybody, what are the 3 things you didn't get done this year, you want to get done next year? And then quarterly, we're going to have a group hangout and see how we did. And, you know, congratulate those that got it done and help those that didn't, kind of thing. So it's exactly what you're saying.
That is wonderful. And, you know, I think even the weekly post, I don't always chime in, but I read them every week. And I really like that. That's a form of accountability. I know you bring up different topics, but, you know, it gives you stuff to think about. Like, perfect example, you said one of them, what concerts have you been to? And, you know, I hate a concert.
How are we friends?
I don't know.
Malibu and I hate a concert.
I don't know. Mom, hate concerts. I go to bed really early. But, you know, I'm different on vacation. I can rally on vacation. But anyway, it made me think, I'm like, you know what? Why don't you find a concert? You like music. Why don't you just go to a concert? Why, you know, you don't have to have this limiting belief. I hate concerts. So, you know, it can be, accountability can even be about stuff like that, that opens your mind and your life to bigger experiences out there. So I have a personal goal. 2019, I will be attending a concert.
Just one?
Yes. That's 100% more than I went to this year.
I got 2 next week.
I know. Baby steps.
I'll be here with a bang, December 30th and 31st, 1 concert each night.
Well, I would like to say for the record, you did that test on me one time where you played a song and I knew it and you couldn't believe it. It was the beginning to a Cake song. You're like, who knows that? I have very specialized knowledge of like 8 songs.
Stacey, I don't think I ever told you, but this past summer, Stacey and I did 2 concerts in the same night.
What? How is that even legal?
Well, we have this service here in Vegas that gives you free tickets when shows don't sell out, like day of, because they feel if they get you in, then you'll gamble, you'll park, you'll drink, you'll spend money anyway.
Buy t-shirt.
Go empty. And so we got tickets, which I thought was for Saturday night, and we were on our way to a concert on Friday night, and Stacey goes, holy shit, the freebies are for tonight, not tomorrow night. And so the one we had bought tickets for, there was 2 headliners. We liked the first headliner better. So the second they ended, I called the other venue and I said, how long's the headliner play until? And they're like, they got another 50 minutes. So we hopped in our car and got there in about 10 minutes, and we saw the last like 40 minutes of their show. That's
awesome. I love it.
But that, you know, that's definitely a Vegas thing. It is everything's really closed. It's easy to do. And so I'm going to try and do three in a night. I'm going to figure it out somehow.
See, and that's you. That's removing the limiting belief. Remember, you're like, traffic, it's far away. You said, nope, I'm going to figure it out. And that's what I want everyone to do in some form or fashion. You know, I personally would love everyone to say, I can do accounting. It doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be a nightmare. That's not really going to happen. But think of something that you can do to expand your world, and it'll just trickle down, and it's a really good thing. Okay. Top 10 mistakes made by e-commerce sellers. This is a list of things that I have noticed, sort of a variation on a theme. Compare themselves to others. And what I mean is you see people say, well, I have this much in sales. And someone's like, well, I don't have that much. Well, you don't know how much debt they acquired to get the inventory, to get the sales. You don't know what they paid for the inventory. So really try hard. Don't compare to others. You don't know the whole story. Number two, I think I am guilty of this, wasting time on Facebook or other social media.
What?
There's a difference between positive time spending and water skiing squirrels. If you're watching water skiing squirrels, you do not need to do that. One time, it's worth it one time, but that's it. Another mistake I see is they don't keep up with their books. And again, I'm not judging. Everyone has the system, but I literally know people who haven't filed taxes for multiple years because they're so far behind. Also overcomplicating their accounting. I hope I demonstrated today that it can be somewhat straightforward. There's effort involved. I'm not going to lie about that, but it doesn't have to be this big, complicated spider web. Oh my God, look at the water skiing squirrel. Now see, that's cute. Yeah, I can see why people get stuck watching that and they lose time. You know what? I'm going to say I've changed my mind. That is not wasting time. If you are watching water skiing squirrels, I have declared that is time well spent. Number 5, another error is you do not have a proper inventory accounting system. This is the profit pile issue that we're talking about. Even thinking about your life long term. Am I going to be in this home and space forever? If not, what can I do now to generate some money in my pocket? You know, one thing also, and Jason and everyone listening, you know this probably better than I do. I used to collect Fiestaware inventory. I'm sorry, Fiestaware, you know, those like really cool depression glass. And I loved it. And I had all these colors and I saved it for years. And then when I went to sell it, it wasn't worth what it used to be. And that was a bummer.
Yeah, that is. I mean, I've done that with music, tikis, that I'm like, I'm holding out. And then the market just dumps. And I'm like, that mug was worth $100 a year ago. Now it's worth 10. Whoops.
I know it happens. So, you know, that's kind of about living in the moment and not being like greedy and hoardery. And I'm using that term gently, but I know for a fact that people who like to accumulate things are drawn like a moth to a flame selling online. Because I think sometimes what happens is they have so much stuff. They're like, okay, I'm going to sell this and make some money. Well, then they just go buy more stuff. So, you know, kind of be aware of all of that. Ding. Another mistake, procrastinate getting taxes filed. I talked about that. I will tell you guys this. A lot of people don't know this. If you are afraid to file your taxes because you know you owe and you don't have the money to pay for it, you can actually make arrangements with the IRS. They want their money. They're not going to come garnish your account. You can work with them. And you can actually do this with the form online. I don't know if Jason knew this or not. And I'm not saying you procrastinated filing taxes. I know you have. But you can actually, I know people are afraid to file taxes because they owe. You can make arrangements with the IRS. And I think it's like up to $25,000 as an individual and $50,000 as a person. I'm sorry, as a married couple. So don't be afraid to file because you can't pay it. Look into all of that because it just gets worse and worse. You know, it's like anything you procrastinate, it just gets worse putting it off. No one ever says, I'm so glad I procrastinated on whatever it is. I already went over this. Don't mix personal and business transactions in one bank account. If your business bank account does not have enough money and you need to dip into personal, don't dip in. Transfer from one to the other, and that's considered a contribution to your business. There's a way to account for it. The negative money mindset is another issue I see, the scarcity versus abundance. And scarcity is where you think there's only one pie, and if someone else gets a bigger piece, I get less. And that's not true. That is not true at all. Abundance is the mindset of the pie is just infinitely big. Look, there's enough money out there for all of us to be millionaires. You just have to change your mindset. And I think the best way to go from scarcity to abundance is gratitude. If you're ever feeling scarce or like weird about money, stop and think, I'm waking up on this side of the dirt. I'm healthy. I have this, that, and the other. I have another day to live, so that you can always think of something to be grateful for. Real quick, lack of follow through is another big thing. I see people not doing, buying courses and then not following through on it. That's just a waste of money. And then falling for FOMO, the fear of missing out. You don't want to do that. Oh, I better join this group because all these other people are in it. If it's that great, you can join next month if this month isn't a good month to do it. Don't do it because you're afraid to miss out.
And she doesn't mean FOMO like this.
What does that mean?
Fear of mug obstacles. Or fully overcoming mug obstacles. Man, it's been so long since I've said it out loud. We just all know it as FOMO.
Exactly.
Ship your shit in the padded flat rate.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, we're at the stopping point. I want to be respectful of my time and the group's time, and I guess Jason's too. Does anyone have any other questions?
Freely overcoming mug obstacles. Debbie had it. Thanks, Debbie. That's why you're my producer. Freely overcoming mug obstacles.
Okay. Thank you, Debbie. If you guys have any questions, you can friend me on Facebook and send me a message, or you can email me at anna@accountingwewillgo.com. You can post in the group, or you can pester Jason and he will connect us.
So Anna and I have talked about Anna and her husband and me and Stace have traveled together in Europe, and we talked about doing some traveling together this year. So I think if you're going to go to one concert, I want to be there.
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah, I want to be there.
Select the concert.
Yeah, I mean it's got to be like can't be Richard Marx or nothing, you know.
I told you one of the 3 concerts I've been to was Terrence Trent D'Arby, and I loved it.
Wow, I never saw him in the 80s, and I'm sure he put on a good show.
Yeah,
let's figure out what you like and who's on tour this year. That also helps very much.
Yeah,
and then we'll figure out a fun city to meet up in and go see a concert.
It'd be awesome, and we can be accountable to the Secret Beach to follow up on this goal.
Hell yeah, and we'll source while we're in that city, wherever it is.
We'll hit a thrift store. We'll maybe do a tiki bar. I mean, it sounds better and better by the second. We just need.
Debbie wants you to go see Iron Maiden.
I'll do. You know what? I'm game. That's what your plugs are for.
Michelle wants to know if we can just send all our tax stuff to Anna.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I do not do taxes. You know what? If you need a tax CPA, though, you can call your state society of CPAs. That's the state licenses the CPAs, and ask for a CPA in your community. If you're out shopping and you want, let's say you go to a local inventory-based business like a pet supply store, not PetSmart, but if you're going there and it's a little local business, ask them who they use for their CPA. You can ask in your church. You can go on my Facebook group and say, hey, I had someone this weekend. I'm in Phoenix. I need a CPA, and a couple people popped up. So, ask around. Referrals are a great way to find a CPA.
Sabrina says she makes her tax appointment a year in advance.
That is my kind of girl.
Yeah, I'll still make mine later on, but but it will be earlier than April 15th this year. I guarantee you that.
Yes, I think that's awesome. And remember that the 1099s don't come out until about the 3rd or 4th week of January. So you have time, but now is a good time to start getting everything in order and commit to doing it differently in the future.
And I'm well aware that either you or what's your partner's name? Allison. Getting old sucks. And either you or Allison need some information from me. You'll get it tomorrow, I promise.
You know where to find you. That's okay. We even know where you live, so.
I know where you live.
Well, this was a delight. Thank you. This is my pet topic, but I also think it's just so important to think about some of these bigger issues too. And, everything we can do to develop ourselves personally impacts our business positively, and always stop and give back to others. Help someone, use patience if they've asked a question that's annoying that you know the answer to. It's also important for us to give back.
So let's end on this question, because it's a really great question, and I'm sure one that a lot of people have to deal with. Chris says, I find a lot of CPAs don't deal with e-commerce. So what's your tip or trick for finding a CPA in your area that knows e-commerce? Well,
here's the answer, and you probably won't like it, but I found a lot of people want to work with a CPA who has e-commerce experience, because they themselves, the client/seller, doesn't know what reports they need to give to the CPA. As long as you work with a CPA who has experience and willing to do the taxes for an inventory-based business, then you, the seller, should be able to say, I sell on Amazon. I get a 1099. This is how I track the cost of my inventory. I sell on eBay. This is where I get the sales. It comes from PayPal. Here's the report at the end of the year. And that's what my group is for. I try to bridge the gap. But I will say, if you work with a CPA who has e-commerce experience, it does kind of shortcut where you're not having to explain to the CPA, I get biweekly payouts, or this is how eBay feeds, or how PayPal feeds in. So there are some benefits, but you don't have to work with a CPA who has e-commerce experience. And I will tell you this too. Sometimes CPAs are a little bit more technology friendly, and I don't want to say it's an age thing, because that's not really true. But someone who already knows, oh yeah, I know what it's like. You can go on Amazon and there's third-party sellers, or I've bought stuff on eBay. You certainly want someone who's a little bit comfortable with that, because some people are just going to be old school, again, not necessarily in age, but an approach, and that's probably not going to be a good fit for you, because you want to be able to at least have some baseline commonalities to talk about.
There it is. Boom. That's a perfect way to. My mom says thank you, Anna.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you very much. That is our guest webinar, our Typhoon for the month of December. I will pop all the links that we saw in here. I will pop them in the post for the specific webinar. So you can just easily click it and you have to write down all the gobbledygook and make life easy. Anna's in the Secret Beach. So she'll be happy to answer questions here and there. But don't just send her your paperwork and say, thank you, good luck.
If you send a giant 6-figure check, you can do that.
Oh, okay.
But it has to be 6-figure check.
So that count the zeros, after the dot.
But thank you so much. I enjoyed it at all, as always. And, you guys come to the group or reach out to me if you have questions or tag in the group, because I really want to try to help if I can. So thank you, Jason. I appreciate it. Loved it.
Thank you all, and we'll see you later. We are having a show Thursday, Thrifty Business. We're still working on a guest. It's the week before Christmas. Shockingly, people are busy. I don't know what the heck, but we will be on Thursday. I think we have a guest lined up, so it should be fun. So stay tuned for the date of that, or the guest of that. All right, with that, I'll say adieu.
Thank you. Bye, guys.